Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Criterion Learning session on Canadian tax year end. As a reminder, we do have a Q&A function that you can use to ask us questions, and we do have personnel who are going to be able to answer those questions. If there's something that we cannot answer, we will certainly follow up via email and get those questions answered for you. And the video of today's presentation will be available and sent out to you shortly after we do this, probably by the end of the day tomorrow. All right, I do want to also remind you that our personnel are not tax professionals. If you do have any questions on taxes and things around your taxes and stuff like that, I do want to make sure that you understand that we cannot be held liable for that. If you have questions, please reach out to your accountant, a tax advisor, or a tax consultant. What we can do is we can help you with your configuration of the system based off of their advice, but we're not going to be able to provide that advice to you. All right, so with that being said, let me go ahead and switch into the system here. Where is my, sorry, I need to find my browser. Here it is, okay. All right, so you should be able to see my browser here. And what we're going to do is we're going to cover the settings and so forth that's going to be done in the system. And then we'll talk about the different reports that we have out there for year-end stuff. All right, so when we're talking about the settings, there's a few different places where things are configured. Some of these things are already in the system for you. Or they at least should be in the system for you. And if they're not there, then we can work on it, getting the database team to add that to your system if they're missing. So the first one I want to talk about are the labels that could be used for various incomes and deductions as far as where it shows up on the T4. So those are going to be under your code tables here on the left. You'll see code tables. And we've got type right here. You'll want to make sure it says user. And I'll scroll down and I will find the label in here. Right, so what you should see, and I actually don't have them all in here in my training environment, but that's okay. But what you should see are codes that are labeled like this. So they'll say T4 underscore box and then underscore whatever the box number is that it should show up in. So if you have somebody, something you need to show into box 20, or box 52 or whatever, you can go ahead and click on that box to be able to get that there. So if you do not see any of them in here, then please reach out to support. We can get them mass added to your system very quickly. They should have been mass added, and they get added as we add more functionality to T4 or if their requirements change. But if you don't see them at all, please reach out. We get them all added. You could, of course, add them manually. You want to see how they work. It's very simple. The code and the description are exactly the same. It needs to be in this format. That's why we say just reach out to us. We'll add them all in the right format, because if you don't have the capitalized and stuff like that, it may not work correctly. So those should be there in your system labels. Now you're not required to put them on all incomes. As an example, box 14 is going to populate for all wages. You don't need to go through and set that up on every income code. But that's where things are configured in here. So if I go to different income codes here, and yours are going to look completely different than mine. That's okay. Mine's just a little test environment here. But you can go ahead and put these on the various codes where they belong on the T4. So let's say you've got some type of, let's say, a taxable benefit, and you want to put that on your T4 into box 40. What you would do is you would go into the income code where that applies, and let's just say for training purposes, it's this parking one. In this system label here, you would make sure that it says T4 underscore box underscore 40. And that means that at the end of the year, when you do your T4s, anything that an employee has accumulated in this income code, parking as an example, would go into box 40 for the other information. If you run your T4s and you're expecting something to be in box 40 that's not there, it's okay. You can still go to that income code, add the box 40 system label like this, rerun your T4s, and it should show up in there. right. Another example are boxes 20 and 52 that would be on deductions. So let's see if I should have a deduction. No, I don't see one out here, but let's just say, oh, here we go. My RPP deduction here. You'll see I have box 20 and box 52 as the labels on this deduction. That would mean that any deductions, whether it's employee or employer, is going to show up in those boxes based off the year-to-date accumulation when you run your T4s. Again, if it's not here and you want to see it in box 20 and 52, or it needs to be in box 20 and 52, just go to the deduction or the deductions that you need to have that in there to show into those boxes. All right, and then finally, one other one I want to cover, because there are, of course, lots of other boxes that show up on the T4, but one other one I want to cover, because I know we do have some First Nations employers. So if you do have status employees and you would like to indicate their status, that their wages do not show up in box 14, instead they show up in box 71, there is on the advanced profile, additional demographics, a system label box right here. And you would simply choose T4 box 71 for any status employees that should be indicated as such on the T4 and in the box 71. So you'll want to go through any of those employees and do that. Again, you could do this after the fact. It doesn't need to be done like January to affect the entire year. You can put it in even today and it will be correct going forward. All right, so those are the different boxes. And again, if you have questions on how that works, how the different labels work, or if your labels are missing, please reach out to our support. As a reminder, you can always click on the help button here to see our support email address and phone number that you can call. You'll, if you've never called before, every client is assigned a customer success manager. And so you'll talk to that person every time you call in. I know sometimes you will go on vacation, but let's say 99% of the time you'll talk to the same person. If you email, same thing with email, they'll be the one answering your email. So they'll be very familiar with your account. You may know that person because you were transitioned when you went from implementation into support. You talked to that person at that time. So again, just always can reach out to those numbers right there. All right, so let's talk about the various reports that you may want to run to verify the numbers that are going to be on your T4. So we'll go to reports here. Now, I do want to be in payroll when I'm doing this, because if I'm not in payroll here in the upper left, I will not see the payroll reports here on the menus. I'll see HR reports or recruiting reports, wherever I happen to be. So make sure you change to payroll. And then when you click on reports, you should see your payroll reports here. All right, so let's talk about the different reports that are out there that are probably going to be useful to help you make sure your numbers on your T4 are correct. So we'll start off with deduction reports. So there's various reports here for deductions. I'll go ahead and click on deduction totals so you can see what this report looks like here. And when I'm running this report, of course, I can run it by employer. So if you do have multiple companies, you may want to run it by employer because the T4s are run by employer. So you'll go ahead and choose the correct employer. Now, if you just have one employer, you obviously don't need to select that. You just have one. But in my situation, I have multiple, so I select that. When I'm doing this, now, of course, it's December, so I could say current year to get everything in 2022. Once January 1 rolls around and going forward into next year, you'd want to use previous year to get your totals for 2022. Or you could do custom. If you do custom, you can type in or use the little calendar button to select the date you want to do right there like this. I could type it in 1/1. Now, with the date field, just so you're aware, if you just type in the month and day, it will pull the year from the current year that you're in. So if you're used to typing in, a lot of people get used to doing it throughout the year and then they forget in January to add the year on there. Make sure that if it is January, you just do 22 or 2022 so it knows there. And then I have it set up this way where it's month, day, year. Yours may be different, in which case if it was day, month, year, you would type in 31/12 and then it would come up with December 31st. Again, make sure the year is correct on that. You could always use the one right on here too for current year or previous year. All right, now I'm just going to kind of leave it open here. I'm not setting up any other parameters, and I'll go ahead and apply on this report. All right, so just so you can see what this looks like, these are totals for the different deductions showing the employer contribution as well as the employee deduction. So when you're looking at things on your T4s, and let's say I want to make sure that the total RPP is 117,865. All right, so I do want to make sure that is the total there. Of course, that's going to go onto your T4. So we want to make sure that's right. Same thing with any other deduction that you may want in another information box and stuff like that. If you're looking for those totals and you don't see them matching up, well, again, those labels may be missing or you may have the incorrect label on there. So make sure that you take a look at that. Now, if you want to see the detail on that, because this is the totals, you might want to do the deduction summary report. Again, make sure you're running it for the same date range and all your other parameters are set. So if in the previous report, if you'd run it by, let's say, a cost center, you'd want to run this one by a cost center. I don't know why you would do that in a year-to-date report, but if you were, then make sure those things match up here. For ease of use, I'm just going to say current year, and you'll see it fill those in, and I'll run this report. Please ignore the US deductions in here. You can probably guess I use this for both countries when I'm doing training. But so what this is going to have is by each employee, the deductions that they have for the year. So again, when I'm looking at my T4 and I want to see Chris's T4, I want to make sure this stuff matches up with the employee and employer amount to show in the correct boxes. All right, so this one is showing it that way. Mine is very simple here. I have mostly just the RPP on people. So very simple to see that. Yours would probably have multiple deductions for each employee. But again, you can use that. To do that, if I wanted to drop this out to Excel, maybe to look at it that way, I can choose Excel right here, or under the options, when I did this originally, I could have done this as Excel. All right, so that's the one that kind of groups it up by employee. If I look at it this way, deduction totals right here, this is going to group it up by the deduction code, and then the employees are going to be under it. Again, make sure the same criteria or parameters match up. And so here you can see for each code, the employees who have that. So this might be an easier way to see it. We just like to show it from multiple different viewpoints. All of the numbers should match up because it's all reading from the exact same data, but this just is another way of running it. So now you can see by each deduction code, and then here are the people, for example, in my RPP, all those people, and I can see, year-to-date employee amount, employer amount, etc. So I can see all those numbers on there. Again, I could drop this out to Excel by doing this option up here, or previously on the other screen, doing that option for Excel. All right, so those are the various deduction reports. Let's look at the income reports. Again, we have 3 different ones. They're basically the same as the deductions, except for these are income. So I'll go ahead and I'll just do the current year. This is going to show a total for all my incomes by income code. I'm not going to see any employee detail here. So I'm seeing the totals for my company here. All right, so again, if I'm looking at, say, box 14, if I don't have any status employees, I can look at this and I can see, okay, my totals should be 4,118,806.74. All right, so that's showing that information there. Now, if I do want to see the detail of those employees, maybe I've got some taxable benefits and I want to look at those by employee, I can run it. Again, income summary, this is going to be the one that has it all grouped up by each employee. I have that option at the top there. I could have done Excel if I want to drop it out to Excel. All right, so each employee, there's my different income codes, and you can see all those there. All right, let's go to the income totals by employee. This is going to be by code, and then employees under each code. Remember, I could drop it to Excel. All right, so here you go. This is showing for each code, the people underneath it. So you can see comp time, etc. All right. Now, finally, we have the tax reports. These are broken out into a separate menu. So let me go ahead and close this one here. So let's look at the totals, taxable wages totals. So there's 4 reports here, but 3 of them are going to have the year-to-date information that you would want. So here we go, current year. Again, I could drop it out to Excel. I'm not putting any criteria breaking it out as far as by department or anything like that. Now, again, let's just ignore the US taxes up here at the top. We'll look at the Canadian ones. You probably wouldn't have this mixture. I don't know any company that keeps them together within one company. Usually we would have it separate if you do have a US branch or something like that. But here you can see the Canadian ones down here. So I've got my gross wages, subject wages, et cetera. You can see going across employer taxes, et cetera. So you can see all those right there. And then, of course, here it is broken out by employee and by tax. So again, let me just do the current year. Right, so you can see here it's each employee. Again, you wouldn't have probably as many as I have because I've got federal or US federal as well as Canadian taxes down here. So, but each employee is listed here. And then it goes on to the next person, et cetera. You can see them all down there. And then this one would group it by the tax code. So this would have, each tax code and then the employees underneath it. So again, just different ways to look at this data, whatever you're most comfortable with, and you can always drop it out to Excel to get it out there. If you do happen to make some changes, of course, you want to rerun these reports. So sometimes, you find something, or maybe there's some type of last minute type situation. You thought everything was good with your taxes, and then all of a sudden somebody says, oh, I forgot this overtime for this employee. Can you put it dated December 31st? If you let that happen, of course, you got to rerun all your reports to get that in there. But here you can see Canadian, and then here's all the different employees with their gross wages and taxes withheld and everything like that. All right, just if you're curious, this employee tax configuration just shows the setup of their taxes. So it shows the, what taxes they have assigned and the things they have on their tax codes. So that's what that one does there. So let's look at the T4. So under tax filing, you can ignore those first 2, those are for the UK, but you'll see here T4. So when you run this here, there's just a few different options you'll need to select here or enter in here. So you'll see, of course, choosing the employer and then what year. Now you don't need to put anything on box 82, but you can if you would like. But let's look at see what this is like. And I'll talk about how you can publish these out to a self-service or email them out. What I'll get here in a second here is going to be the T4s with everything populated based on the boxes, et cetera, that I entered in. Now, some of these things are not going to look at the labels. Like I said, box 14, as long as I didn't put somebody down as box 71, it's going to be all wages. So as you go through here, you'll see that if I did box 71, box 14 would be 0, and box 71 would have their wages in there. So that's how that'll work there. But here you go. So you can see box 14, and there's the income tax. So that's where using the income reports and the tax reports, et cetera, those all kind of play together to show the information that's on this report here. You'll see EI premiums, RPP, and so forth. You'll see those right there. If you had anything in box 40, of course, that would be populated showing that information down here. So it would have that other like taxable benefits, et cetera. Now, when you're looking at this, you'll notice that you can click into a box. They're all ones I can click in to edit the information. All right. The thing is, if I edit something here, it does not go back and edit anything on their employee record. So if I notice a misspelling in a name or the address is incorrect or something like that, and I fixed it here, it's not going to go back and fix the guy's name or his address back on his demographic screen or his address screen. Same thing with the numbers that are showing here in the various boxes. If I go and correct his wages here, and I make this say 23,000, it's not posting anything to his payroll history. If I rerun those reports for incomes, et cetera, they're going to show this number, 21.6 versus 23. So it's always recommended that you fix it in the actual data rather than on the report, unless it's something where maybe you need to check a box or something like that. You could do that if you needed to do that, because it doesn't really write back in that situation there. Now, I don't have an employer account number configured in mind, but you should have your employer account number there. And I'm not surprised I'm missing social insurance numbers, because in my demo data, my employees don't have those. So yours would have that information. But same thing. If you see like somebody's SIN is wrong, again, go fix it on their record, because otherwise next year it'll be wrong, or if you regenerate it, it'll be wrong again. All right, so you can go through here, but everything else should be, matching up with your reports. You go through your report here. Sorry, I'm scrolling very quickly. You'll see down here at the bottom, here's my summary of everything. All right, if I entered back in my options, let me show those options. If I'd entered a number in my box 82, it would have reflected it right here, and it would show, obviously if I paid everything, it would show 0 as the difference, and I would not have anything under overpayment or balance due. But let's say I did 1.75 million, and obviously then I would overpaid, I'd have a number in overpaid, or if I didn't pay this number, I'd have something in balance due. So if you do use this right here, it will correctly enter the information into these 4 boxes right here. Otherwise, you'll have to do the math yourself. So you'll notice here, if I put in, let's say I remitted $5, it's not updating this by $5. I need to go and update this and this. So just be aware of those right there. Right. Here you'll see the instructions that print on the back of this. Now, we do not print it on the back of each form there. So what some of our clients will do is they'll print out one of these, and then they'll flip the things over on their printer, and they'll photocopy it onto each one. So you could do that, or you could just print out, I don't know how many different ones I have. Let's say I've got it says on here 108. I could print out this page 108 times and just include it with their T4. So that'd be one way I could do that right there. All right, same thing with this information here. All right, now at this point, now I do want to state that your PDF viewer, what I'm seeing on the screen here, may look different. I'm using Chrome as my browser, but if you're using Firefox or Internet Explorer or Edge or any other browsers, your PDF viewer may be different. In fact, some browsers don't have a PDF viewer in them at all, and it will export out the PDF when you actually run it. And of course, then you can look at it in whatever you use for your PDF. I have the option here to download, which would save a local copy for me. I can also print, which obviously sends it to my printer. I'm not going to bother doing that, but that's how I can handle printing that. So you would load in the paper you're working on here. As you can see, we print everything, but maybe you have paper that's perforated in the middle, so you can fold it nicely, or people can get 2 copies very easily. You would load that paper in. What I always tell people is, just in case you aren't sure which way your paper goes, is it upside down or something like that, print the first page, make sure it works right before you send all 111 pages or more to the printer. I also have an option up here to publish. So this is something where it can push the T4s out to SelfService, as well as send an email. So you could do either send an email only, publish to SelfService only, or you could do both. When I hit this button, it will publish this out to my SelfService. And so what's that going to look like, and how does that get configured? I'll show you that in a second. So it's publishing in progress. This doesn't take a tremendous amount of time, but what it's doing is breaking this out. Each employee is going to get their own page. So it has to split out 108 copies. So you'll see it'll take a little bit of time to do this. So, have some patience, maybe, take a sip of coffee or something like that and let it finish there. While that's doing that, let me do this and actually load SelfService. I'm going to load my settings as well in another tab, so I can show you where that's configured there. So while this is publishing, let me go back to my settings. I'll show you where this is configured. if you're interested in doing this. So there's two things you need to do publishing to self-service. So one is you need to create a folder or a document storage place, whatever you may want to refer to that as, where you want it to save those documents. So under General, or if you type documents up here, you'll find documents. All right, you'll need to make a folder. Now, I already created one called T4. It doesn't need to be called T4. You can call it anything you like: tax documents, year-end, other documents, company reports, whatever you may want to call it. Anything you want to call it up here, you just go up here and you click Add Folder. And let's say I want to call it tax documents. All right, and I click Create. So now I have this new folder out here for tax documents. And just so you could see this. All right, now if I was going to set restrictions, I could do that here. For the T4, you wouldn't want to set restrictions because you want people to be able to see them, assuming you want people to be able to see them. All right, now what the system will do, you'll notice my T4 has some has a document already in here. So this is what just got published. This is the complete PDF. So it's all 111 pages. And that's okay. I could download a copy of this if I need to. Now, it does not do that to each employee. It's not going to print out all 111 pages for each employee. But you will see this in here. So if you publish, and let's say you made a mistake and you got to redo it, you would probably want to delete this so you don't have duplicates of that out there. All right, so that's right there. So don't worry about it being right here. Your employees will not be able to see this. What they will see is going to be in self-service. But how does it get there? That is under system configuration, and you will see document delivery right here under system configuration. Everything is alphabetical. But again, if you type in document, two things are going to show up. First off, the documents thing where you create the folder, and then document delivery, which is the configuration. How's it configured? So I created this one. I named it T4. You can call it anything you like. I told it how do I want it to distribute it. So one is going to be by email, and then the other one is post in ESS. You could choose one or the other or both. And then if you're doing post in ESS, you need to tell it which folder to use that you just created. So that one called T4. All right, I've created other ones. That's why I'm seeing those. But T4, tax documents, whatever you want to do, you can do that. All right, you do need to select which report you're going to use, in which case I use the T4. You could put a description here if you want. You want to make sure it is active. If it's not active, you will not be able to publish. All right, I know it's done publishing because I actually got an email, but let me show you what it looks like here in self-service. So I switched over to self-service. I have this folder here. There's a folder icon. This is where my documents are. All right. So where it's going to be is it's going to be under reports. And then here it is. So there's T4. It makes a new folder for every year. That's why I see 2022 here. And then here is my T4 being Chris. So you'll see, of course, the other one I think was 20 megabytes. This one is 400 kilobytes. It's much smaller. I could download this. And well, it opened in another window, but it's my T4 as being Chris Speared. All right, so that's how that works there and how it gets published out to the employees. Now, if I need to delete Chris's, which may happen, you know, something happens, you had the wrong address on one person, you need to fix just theirs and republish just theirs, that's totally fine. You could do that. You would want to make sure you go to documents and then under reports, here's T4, and then I would want to delete it so that I can you know, republish that one, not the folder, but the report right here. Okay, so that is publishing that on there. I was going to see if there's any Q&A questions. We have a couple more minutes. Actually, we don't really have a couple more minutes. So let's see. There was a question here about status employees. So just so in case people didn't see this, if you do have status employees, you do need to put the label on each status employee. if you have as Patrick said in his answer here, if you have a large number of employees, what you could do is provide us with a file, like a spreadsheet that has the employee ID and lets us know, okay, let's add that label, the box 71 label to all these employees. And then we can do that. So just reach out to support if you need it done to many employees. Let's say you got 300 employees that all need it. Rather than having you spend, some time going to each employee, we can mass upload that into the system. All right, so I don't see any other, the other question was, are we going to change the template so the second page appears automatically? At the time, right now, we don't have it appearing automatically on the second page. It's required to be included, and that's why I was saying if you're going to print them, what you could do is one of two things. You could print out 100, however many employees you have, that one page you could print out that many times, just include it in an envelope if you're going to mail them. Or you could like flip the paper over and print on the back. I think they sell also ones that where it's pre-printed on the back. So that would solve the problem right there. You don't need to worry about reprinting them. But the one thing is the electronic one does not have it. So it is, it's just a PDF and it's just the first page. So I don't really have a solution for that one. You could publish that out as a document to all the employees. You could place it actually in your reports folder here. Like I have this address list one. This is just a report that I uploaded to everybody. So I published it out to everybody. They could see that. So you could print out just that one page as a PDF and load it into your reports folder, and everybody would be able to see that. All right, so I know we went a couple of minutes over. I did want to share one last thing, which is our upcoming schedule here. So if you happen to be also a US employer and you missed our training a couple of weeks ago, we do have one next week to go over United States tax year end. If you're just in Canada, you can obviously ignore that, or maybe you're interested and you want to see what they have to deal with. You're welcome to join us. Otherwise, we will be taking a little break for the holidays because we realize that you guys are really busy. And so we're going to have our next one. This is another US topic here. It's ACA reporting. So we'll probably see most of you again on January 24th, which is our onboarding review, where we'll talk about how to set up onboarding and so forth in the system. So less payroll after the next couple of sessions. We'll get into other things that are non-payroll related. Otherwise, thank you for your time today. Appreciate it. As I mentioned, we will be sending this recording out. If you asked a question that did not get answered, we will reach back out to you and answer that. Otherwise, you could always call us or send us an email, and we'd be happy to help you out and answer those questions for us. So thank you so much for your time today, and have a great day.